Elon Musk shock watching black beggar plead for pregnant millionaire mom's life. The rain hit the cold concrete with a furious rhythm, splattering everywhere as if the city itself was crying out. Down in the dim depths of the subway station, Michael Stevens stood frozen, his expensive coat drenched, breath fogging in the stale air. The usual buzz of New York blurred into distant echoes. The screech of a train, the rush of footsteps, the murmur of distant voices. But nothing pulled him from his thoughts until a voice shattered the quiet. "Please, you gotta help me," a woman whispered, her voice raw, shaking like a leaf in the storm. Michael's eyes locked onto Sarah, a black woman crouched against the cold wall, her hands trembling, clutching a worn blanket wrapped around her swollen belly, like it was a lifeline. The rain trickled off her thin hood, mixing with tears on her dirt-smudged face. "Her mother! She's gonna have the baby any second!" Sarah gasped, voice breaking. "And I don't have a way, please." Michael's chest tightened. Something inside him faltered. His usual cold, steel heart raced painfully as a strange instinct clawed its way up from deep inside. A sudden, raw urge to help. But just as he reached out, everything shifted. A name, a face flooded back, sharp as a knife. Sarah's mother. A name from a past Michael thought he buried. A bitter rivalry, shadowed by betrayal and lies that once threatened everything he owned. His empire, his life. Sarah's low voice trembled like a cracked bridge. "They said you could help. Hey, but who knows if you care?" Michael swallowed hard, the roar of the city slick around them. But his world narrowed to this single moment, this one trembling woman and the secret that linked them. The rain outside hammered harder, lightning briefly illuminating the dirt. The desperate hope in Sarah's eyes. And then, a sudden movement in the shadows. A figure stepped forward from the darkness. Calm, cold, impossible to mistake. Someone from Michael's past. Someone he hoped would never appear again. The weight of unspoken questions crashed down. Loyalty, identity. What is wealth in a city built on surface glitz? Is power enough to save a family teetering on the edge? Michael's fingers curled tightly around the small paper she shoved into his hand. A phone number scrawled in urgency. His mind spun. Could he fight for Sarah's family? Could he face the demons waiting in the shadows that had almost destroyed him once before? Outside the subway, the rain poured like a curtain, drowning all sound except the pounding clock. It was ticking, louder and louder, counting down to something neither of them could avoid. Michael looked into Farah's eyes again. Fear, hope, an unspoken challenge. The city held its breath. The night waited. What choice would he make before the shadows swallowed them whole? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Michael felt the pulse of the city in his veins, a drumbeat of urgency, matching the rainfall outside. He stared at Sarah, searching for the words that dangled just out of reach. Her fear wrapped around him, tightening like a vice. He could smell the sharp sting of desperation in the air, and it terrified him. Then, from the shadows, the figure stepped forward, shrouded in mystery and menace. Michael's heart dropped. It was Jason, someone he thought was lost in the tides of his past. The man who had taken everything from him, not just material wealth, but trust and hope. Jason grinned, a flicker of malice in his eyes that sent a chill down Michael's spine. "Michael," Jason drawled, dark amusement lacing his voice, "I see you found yourself in a tight spot. Lurking in subway stations now?" "What do you want?" Michael shot back, fists clenching. But instead of answering, Jason turned to Sarah, his expression shifting, mellow confusion dancing across his features. "And who's this? A damsel in distress? You know a rich man like Michael could turn your life around, if he wanted to. Stay away from her." Michael's voice dropped low, his eyes flaring with intensity. But suddenly, Jason's demeanor changed, as if he found a punchline in an unwritten script. "Oh, but I think you'll want to listen to my proposition, Michael. After all, she's connected to your past more than you realize." Confusion splashed across Sarah's face. "What do you mean?" she whispered. "Surprised?" Jason smirked. "I know your mother's legacy, the family you've tried to forget. It turns out Sarah here isn't just some random stranger. She's your half-sister." Time froze. The city blurred. The truth slammed into Michael like a freight train. Half-sister. The words echoed, spinning in his mind like a relentless cyclone. How could this be? He had locked away every memory of family betrayal, buried it deep under years of ambition and success. It can't be," he stammered, his entire world tilting on its axis. But Jason was relentless, weaving a web around them. "It's true! She's just as much a part of your bloodline as the empire you've built. Her mother reached out before you knew the truth. Now here she is, desperate for help, and your choice will shape more than just her fate." Michael felt the walls closing in. Panic clawed at him as the implications sank in. Would he let his past dictate the future? Did he even have the power to choose? Tears streaked down Sarah's cheeks, mingling with rain as she uttered a single word. "Help." Suddenly, a loud crash resounded through the station. The lights flickered, casting wild shadows, and a gasp erupted from the crowd, holding their breath around them. Michael's heart raced. Was this the opening he needed, or was it the beginning of the end? He took a step forward, drawn by instinct, as the city trembled in the background. The tension crackled like electricity, and he realized the choice loomed larger than family ties, larger than redemption. What would he do? The future hung in balance, unsteady and waiting. Michael's heart raced, pounding in his chest like thunder. The number he clutched felt heavy, a lead weight pressing down on reason. He snapped his gaze back to Sarah, who knelt there, hope teetering on the brink of despair. The shadows danced around them, a growing storm of uncertainty swirling in the depths of their interaction. "Can you help me?" she pleaded again, her voice slicing through the chaos, raw and trembling. The city buzzed on, alive with people's lives, yet here in this moment, it felt impossibly still. But suddenly, the cold air shifted. A palpable tension crackled through the space, tightening Michael's throat. Then the faint sound of footsteps echoed, firm and deliberate. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a sleek, tailored suit, eyes as sharp as glass. Michael felt his stomach drop. It was Roger, his former business partner, the one who had betrayed him. The streets had whispered tales of Roger's shadowy dealings, and now here he was, stepping into the heart of Michael's turmoil. "Michael," Roger said, a smirk creeping across his face. "Look who's back in town." Michael's skin prickled, conflict roiling in his gut. The memories rushed back. Broken dreams, lost friendships, the fire of ambition turned ash. Roger's gaze fell on Sarah, narrowing with calculation. "You found yourself in a bit of a mess, haven't we?" The way he spoke twisted the air, making it thick with dread. "Need a little assistance?" "Get away from her!" Michael snapped, his voice loud, echoing off the tiled walls. Sarah flinche. While fear dartiendo sus ojos, su hipo del clavo se asentó. But Roger took a step closer, his presence suffocating. "You still don't get it, do you? I'm the only way you can help her. You know her mother can't afford the hospital. The kid, it's risky." He let the logic dangle, taunting. "You make a call to the right people and boom, the problem is solved." Michael's heart pounded, conflicted. A life against the price of his own soul? But then, Roger leaned in, speaking in a hushed, silky tone. "Or perhaps you could just walk away. Let this one disappear like all the others." The words hung in the air, infusing a sharp, icy fear. Michael gritted his teeth, staring into Sarah's pleading eyes. Memories of his own past wrapped around his throat like barbed wire. This was the man who had almost crushed his dreams, who had turned ambition into a weapon. "What do you know about her?" Michael's voice sliced through the heaviness. A chilling smile tugged at Roger's lips. "More than you think." Just then, an uproar erupted behind them. Shouts, screams, an explosion of chaos exploded in the station. People dashed from the platform, faces painted with panic. Michael's mind split between the urgent threats before him. What was happening? Sarah's eyes widened in terror, the urgency flooding her features. "Please, my mom!" But without warning, Michael's world tilted. He caught a glimpse of an officer, badge flashing, stepping toward them urgently, suddenly breaking through the crowd. Michael's heart stopped, because along with the officer stood someone else, his mother, her face pale and drawn, fear written all over her. "Michael!" she gasped, voice hoarse as if she had run a marathon. "You have to come with me, now!" The ground beneath him seemed to vanish. The city buzzed dimly, and right now, everything felt like a tightrope, swaying, ready to snap. Confusion crashed over him, drowning thought. What had he stepped into? The shadows were closing in, and the choices lay heavy. Each one could either save or shatter everything he thought he knew. What path would he take in this storm before him? Michael felt the ground shifting beneath him. The sight of his mother standing there, face pale and frantic, sent a jolt through him. Confusion swirled in his mind like a whirlwind. Why was she here? What did she know? "Michael!" she shouted, urgency lacing her voice. "You have to come with me, now!" The urgency in her tone pulled him, but before he could move, Sarah's voice pierced the moment. "Please, my mom needs you. Don't leave me." Her eyes were wide, searching, pleading. The words hung in the air, spinning like a whirlwind. Roger's face twisted in delight, sensing the chaos as if it was a game. "What's the matter, Michael? Torn between family and a stranger?" He leaned closer to Sarah, and her body tensed. Fear swept through Michael like a cold draft. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed in the subway as a train screeched to a halt, the sound ripping through the panic. People screamed, scattering in all directions, ducking to avoid the chaos. Michael lost his focus, lost in the mix of chaos and shadows. But then there was another sound, barking, frantic and wild, as a police dog bounded through the throng, eyes scanning. The officer in charge followed closely. With sirens wailing in the background, the scene escalated. "Move aside!" the officer shouted, forcibly pushing through to confront Roger. "Step back!" Michael's heart raced. It wasn't just about Sarah now. Everything was spiraling out of control. What was Roger hiding? He clenched his fists, determination surfacing. "You won't take her," was what he wanted to yell. The officer stepped closer, eyes shifting between Michael and Roger. "We've got a situation to address. I need to know exactly what's happening here." Before anyone could respond, Sarah screamed, "No!" Her voice echoed off the tiled walls, cutting through the chaos like a knife. And it was then that an unexpected figure appeared from the shadows. His father, backed by two officers, face drawn tight with worry. "Where have you been?" Michael's voice shook, surprise and rage colliding. His father stammered. "I've been trying to find you." The revelation was staggering. The very last person he expected. But before Michael could process anything, Roger's smirk hardened, darkness glinting in his eyes. "You think you can waltz in here and fix everything? Pathetic." And then came the twist. "Michael, there's something you don't know," Roger taunted, leaning in with a low voice. "Your father isn't just here to help. He's been part of this all along." The revelation struck like lightning. "What do you mean?" Michael's breath hitched. Confusion battled anger in his chest. "Your mother," Roger's words dripped with venom. "She had reasons to keep you apart. You're not the only one with a past, Michael." Panic clawed at Michael's throat. His mother's eyes were wide with shock. The crowd around them felt like a swirling storm, voices melding into an anxious hum as they watched the unfolding drama. The air thickened, tension boiling. Michael's world felt like it was fracturing, layers peeling back to reveal betrayals he had never anticipated. A half-sister, a mother's secret, and now a father entwined in the very web he sought to escape. "What are you hiding?" Michael demanded, fury and confusion battling within. Roger grinned. "Just the beginning, my friend." A shudder rippled through the crowd, gasps echoing, and suddenly everything felt like it was teetering on the edge. Truths waiting to spill, emotions ready to erupt. What had been just another night had morphed into a crossroads of shadows, where family ties and betrayal twisted impossibly tight. Michael stood there, heart racing, wondering how far down this rabbit hole he'd have to go. What did this all mean? What would he do next? Michael's heart raced, each beat sinking with the pounding rain outside. 1,000 thoughts swirled in his mind, battling for control. What choice would he make? Time loomed heavy over them, ticking louder with every gasp from Sarah, weighed down by desperation. But before he could answer, the darkness shifted again. The figure from his past stepped forward, a shadow illuminated by the flickering lights of the subway. It was Peter, his former business partner, a man with a smile as sharp as a blade. Michael hadn't seen him in years, but the animosity between them felt fresh, the memories still raw. "Funny seeing you here, Mike," Peter said, his tone casual, confident, a mask of ease hiding deeper intentions. His eyes glinted, reflecting the dim light, revealing a layer of mischief that sent chills racing down Michael's spine. "What do you want?" Michael's voice came out steadier than he felt. The air grew thick, charged with unspoken tension as Sarah shrank back, confusion etched across her face. "I hear you're in a bit of a bind," Peter continued, stepping closer, his hands casually tucked into his jacket pockets. "A pregnant woman, a desperate situation. I might have the means to help." "Stay away from her," Michael snapped, instinct. The warmth of his coat felt small against the weight of the entire city watching. "But, Mikey, think about it," Peter pressed, a sly smile creeping across his face. "I have connections, money, resources, all yours for a price. We could turn this whole situation around." "What's the catch?" Michael asked, narrowing his eyes. A storm brewed in his chest. A tempest of emotions twisted at the thought of working with someone he had once called a brother. "No catch, just an opportunity," Peter replied smoothly. "Isn't that what's important? Helping a family in need? That's what you want, right?" Sarah's breath hitched, and Michael turned, catching the flicker of hope in her eyes. "You don't know what you're asking," he whispered to her, afraid of the implications. Before he could continue, Peter pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts with an ease that ignited dread in Michael's gut. "I already have a doctor on speed dial, someone who can ensure the delivery goes smoothly. Trust me, just give me a sign." Michael felt the paper slip from his fingers, the urgency drowning in layers of past betrayal and twisted loyalty. As he tried to gather his thoughts, a clamor erupted behind Peter, a sudden shout, the echo of hurried footsteps. A storm of police officers surged into the subway, uniforms blue against the dull gray of the station. Michael's breath caught in his throat as they shouted orders, some brandishing flashlights like weapons. The train screeched to a halt. Bright lights spilling into the shadows, blinding him momentarily. "Get down!" someone shouted as a figure broke through the crowd. Panic in their eyes, and before Michael could process, it was too late. In an instant, Sarah gasped sharply, clutching her stomach as the sudden commotion startled her. Her knees buckled, and she fell to the ground, the blanket slipping from her grasp. The world froze. Every noise faded into a hush, all eyes turning to the woman in distress. "Help!" Michael screamed, panic igniting in his chest. He rushed to her side, but his focus was shattered as he glanced at Peter's face, twisted with a mixture of satisfaction and secrecy. And then, just like that, Another shout erupted. This time, not from the police, but from a stranger who stepped forward, breathless and wild, saying the unthinkable. "I'm her father!" The ground shifted beneath Michael, reality bending as the truth smacked him in the face. Everything he had fought for, the choices that had led him here. So he looked at Sarah, who stared back, horror blazing in her dark eyes. And as the noise surged back, the urgency of the moment crashed over him again. He felt the walls of his carefully constructed life begin to crumble. What was real and what was lie? The shadows loomed larger, hungry for answers, and Michael could only stand there, breathless, as the clock ticked down to an unknown fate. Michael looked back into Sarah's eyes, caught in that moment between doubt and determination. The shadows shifted, and the darkness deepened as his heart raced. And then a loud crash echoed through the subway, jolting everyone awake. An explosive force that shattered the quiet. A group of figures burst forth from the shadows, sending people scrambling. They wore black, faces obscured, but the glint of knives reflected the dim light. "Get down!" shouted a young man nearby, his voice slicing through chaos. Panic consumed the station as screams filled the air. Sarah clutched her blanket closer, her fear magnified. Michael's stomach twisted. He instinctively grabbed Sarah's arm. "Run!" he yelled, tugging her away from the impending danger. But Michael's mind spun. The faces of the assailants were familiar. His instincts kicked in. They weren't just thugs, they were former associates turned enemies. The ghosts of his past, people he thought he had left behind. He shoved Sarah behind a pillar, heart racing. "Stay here!" But as Michael turned to confronte los intrudes, something deeper twistó en el intento. This was no ataque de la gracia. This was personal. One figure pulled out, the leader maybe. "Michael?" The voice rang out, smooth and deadly. It was Nathan, a man Michael had once considered a brother. Years of betrayal rushed back, deals gone wrong, lives at stake, a friendship twisted into horror. Nathan's eyes burned with fury, but behind that anger, Michael saw something more. Knowledge. "I know everything, Michael. About her, about you," Nathan hissed, slicing through the din of the subway. Michael's heart dropped. "What do you want?" he spat, the air cold between them. "Answers," Nathan replied, stepping closer into the dim light. "And you're the one who's going to deliver." Before Michael could react, Nathan motioned to his crew. They lunged. A flash of movement. A knife glimmered. Michael dodged, adrenaline surging. He threw a punch, connecting with Nathan's jaw, but the chaotic tide rolled over him. Then, in that wild swirl of bodies, something terrible happened. A shot rang out, echoing like thunder. Time slowed. Everyone stopped. Michael's breath caught in his throat. There, on the ground, crumpled Sarah, eyes wide, hand clutching her belly as crimson began to seep through her worn blanket. "No! Soa!" Michael screamed, rushing to her side, panic exploding in his chest. The world around him faded. All he could see was the pain etched on her face, the blood spreading, the life flickering like a dying star. Whispers of the crowd blurred into noise. Heartbeats raced against a backdrop of chaos. Information began to shatter around them, truths spiraling into darkness. A desperate hope fought against the unraveling tension in his chest. Why her? Nathan stood over them, a cruel grin surfacing. She'll pay for your sins, Michael, just like they did. The words hit like a brick. More than fear, more than loss, this was betrayal that threatened to consume him whole. As people gasped, as arms reached out to help, Michael's world seemed to collapse. Time froze. Relationships blurred. Was he fighting for the right person? The shadows of his past crashed into this moment, twisted into a horrific truth. All lives were tangled in a web he could no longer control. Michael? Sarah gasped, her breath hitching, pain folding into desperation. Lightning streaked across the sky, illuminating the chaos. What had he unleashed? What could he possibly do now, with the weight of the night pressing down, threatening to swallow them all whole? Michael's heart raced. The weight of that phone number burned in his palm. He looked deep into Sarah's eyes, and for a moment, it felt like they were the only two people in the world. The shadows danced along the subway walls, and the rain outside thundered like an ominous warning. Yet all he could hear were her ragged breaths and the ticking clock inside his mind. "Please, I can't lose her," Sarah whispered again, desperation soaking her words. It pierced through Michael's facade, exposing the cracks he'd hidden away. Just then, chaos erupted. A loud crash echoed from the platform above, followed by shouts y frantecas pustepas tónderas en la escalera. Michael's instintos quicaron enfrente. Instintivamente se posicionó en fera, se pulverizando de peligro. Una figura saltó de vista, alto, imponente, deslizado de amanecer. No se trata de un tal pasado de su pasado. Es el hermano Ethan, el hombre que repuntó con bicheo de su lanzamiento de esa pasada. ¡Michael! Ethan chilló, bretado y desesperado. ¡Te forman! ¡Juin nombre! Sin imprevisión. What the hell are you doing here? Doesn't matter, just trust me. Another crash. The sound seemed to split the air, and without warning, the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Heartbeats thundered in the silence. A collective gasp rose from onlookers, confusion spreading like wildfire. "Get down!" Michael urged, instinctively grabbing Sarah's trembling hand. They hit the ground in unison. The dark was punctuated by flashes of light just outside the subway, revealing brief silhouettes of figures clad in black. They moved like shadows, swift and intent. "Michael, we need to go now," Ethan urged again, his voice sharp with urgency. Sarah's grip tightened, and Michael could feel her fear wrapping itself around them both, choking any rational thought. "I can't leave her," he shouted back, anger stirring in his chest. "What's happening?" Ethan opened his mouth to answer, but before any words could escape, a loud explosion rumbled through the station. The ground shook, jolting everyone. Papers flew. Debris rained down. The crowd erupted into screams of panic. "Run!" Ethan yelled, pulling Michael to his feet. The urgency was deafening, but in that moment, something broke inside Michael. All the connections of his past, the secrets he buried, and the rivalries that tore his life apart, fused together in an instant. He saw Sarah's terrified face, this innocent woman linked to his old enemy, and glimpsed the eerie reflection of betrayal in his brother's eyes. "Tell me the truth!" Michael roared. "What's going on?" Ethan's expression twisted, caught between relief and pain. You don't know, do you? Why they're here? Why, Mom? She's not who you think she is. Michael stumbled, shock gripping him like a vice. The shadows crept closer, and in that split second, everything he believed began to unravel. Was his past truly behind him? Outside, the chaos raged like a storm, each sound drumming against Michael's chest. He searched Ethan's eyes, desperation clawing at him. What are you talking about? What have you done? But then a jolt of sirens sliced through the air, a teeth-gritting wail of police cars descending upon the scene, rattling the city and drowning out his thoughts. As they stood at the precipice of revelation, the darkness spun around them, and Michael realized the real fight had only just begun. Michael stood there, the chaos swirling around him, his heart pounding like a war drum. Ethan's presence threw him into a spiral, confusion wrapped tighter around his mind like barbed wire. Sirens wailed, lights flashed, and the tension was almost suffocating. "I need to know the truth," Michael demanded, trying to make sense of it all, his voice shaky with urgency. But before Ethan could speak, another explosion of sound rocked the station. This time, it wasn't an officer. It was a young woman, bolting through the crowd, her face frantic, eyes wild as if she were running for her life. She glanced around, breathless, scanning the chaos, until she locked eyes with Michael. "Michael!" she gasped, her voice cutting through the noise. It was Jess, his childhood friend. A ghost from his past he had never wanted to revisit. "You have to listen to me. This isn't what it seems. They're using you." Michael's mind reeled. "Who's using me?" "I," he shouted over the din, starting to grip her shoulders. "Your mother. She manipulated everything." Jess cried, the panic radiating off her like heat from a flame. "She's been working with Nathan. There's a bigger game at play. You're caught in the middle." The words hit Michael like a fist to the gut. His mother involved? It didn't seem possible. And yet the shadow of doubt flickered in his mind. He felt unsteady, the ground beneath him trembling, as truths shattered like glass. "Nathan?" he asked, anger mixing with disbelief. "What do you mean?" But Jess didn't have time to explain. The crowd surged, fear rippling through them. People were pushing past, shoving to escape, and the air thickened with panic. "Please, you have to trust me," Jess urged, her eyes wide, sincerity written across every feature. "Leave now before it's too late. They want to take everything from you. Everything you love." Suddenly, a freezing chill swept through the air. A swarm of black-clad figures descended on the platform, faces obscured, eyes gleaming with malice. The atmosphere shifted. Something terrible was about to happen. "Get out! Get out!" Michael roared, grabbing Sarah's hand tightly. He couldn't lose her, not like this. They pushed against the tide of bodies, but chaos erupted. Shouts erupted into screams, and the flashes of violence erupted almost instantly. Then, in a gut-wrenching moment, Nathan stepped forward, brandishing a weapon, a cruel smile creasing his face. "You're too late, Michael. This was all part of the plan." His voice echoed hauntingly, each word twisting Michael's gut. But before he could react, the unexpected happened. Another shot rang out across the subway, not from Nathan's gun, but from a nearby officer frantically pulling his weapon. Time slowed. The bullet found its mark, but not in the chaos they all assumed. It struck Jess, who had stepped in front of Michael. Her eyes widened in undying shock, lips parting as she stumbled, collapsing to the ground in a torrent of crimson, a harsh cocktail of disbelief and horror. "Jess!" Michael screamed, the world crashing around him as he dropped to his knees beside her. His heart screamed agony. The very person who had come to help, a light amid the dark, now lay lifeless at his feet. The shadows swirled tighter, choking every breath. The sirens grew louder, but those sounds faded into emptiness. ... Reality twisted painfully into a new shape, and Michael's gut churned with an unbearable weight of betrayal. "How could this happen?" he choked, the ocean of grief crashing into him. Ethan's face mirrored shock. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he gasped, the truth dawning like a sun that would never rise again. Nathan's smirk faded, fear flickering in his eyes as he muttered, "No." Everything was unraveling, and Michael felt the ground shaking beneath the weight of his choices. The lines dividing friend and foe blurred into blood. The air around him pulsed with unspooled tension. He couldn't think. Thoughts raced chaotically. Would this loss be the beginning of his destruction? Or the spark that lit a new fire to bring down those who had turned his world upside down once and for all? Standing there, heart dripping with despair, Michael realized nothing would ever be the same again. Not now. The shadows called to him, deeper and darker, and he was ready to answer. Michael knelt beside Jess, the life pooling out around her, a horror more profound than he'd ever known. Time stretched, the world closing in. Each breath was a battle, panic clawing at his throat. "Jess, please, don't go," he whispered, fingers shaking as he touched her cold hand. She gasped, blood seeping from her lips, eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Michael, it wasn't supposed to..." A scream broke the air. People scattered, voices rising in chaos. Michael turned, instincts surging. Nathan stood there, the gleam of his weapon taunting. But it was another voice that pierced through the din. A voice that made Michael's heart stop. Stop this. It was Sarah. She squeezed through the chaos, desperate, breathless. "Stop! This isn't right! We have to help her!" "Get back!" Nathan yelled, irritation etching lines in his face. But Sarah pushed forward, eyes locked on Jess, terror radiating off her. "We can't just leave her. She needs..." Suddenly, the subway lights went out again, plunging them into near-complete darkness. People screamed, confusion reigning. Then, a flash illuminated the platform. A bright, blinding light aimed directly at Michael and the others. Startled, he shielded his eyes, but the flash brought with it clarity. The figures leading the charge were not just chaotic shadows. These were not random attackers. These were officers, guns drawn, stepping forward with authority amid the panic. "Get down! Now!" one officer bellowed, taking charge as chaos swirled. In that moment of frantic movement, a shout echoed from the back of the crowd. A figure ran through the throng, coat billowing behind them, frantic energy written across each step. A woman! Not just any woman, it was Kate. "Michael! Ethan! No!" Kate shouted, eyes wide, voice cracking with urgency. "Kate!" Michael gasped, a surge of hope coursing through him, cutting through the despair. But the surprise dissolved when she pulled something from her coat, an object that gleamed ominously. A small black device. "Get out of here!" "They're coming!" she cried, but her urgency shifted into something darker. A fear that reframed everything. In a heartbeat, it seemed the air grew thick, charged with impending doom. Michael's pulse quickened, the sensation of dread heavy in his chest. "What's happening, Kate?" "It's a trap!" she screamed, backing away as officers closed in further. Panic spread through the crowd. "This is part of it! You can't trust anyone!" And then, without warning, the black device in her hand emitted a piercing beep. It drew everyone's attention. Michael's breath caught in his throat as he realized the countdown had begun. "Get back!" he shouted, but it was too late. The device erupted in a blinding flash. Heat and sound filled the air, everything around him exploding into chaos. The station shook and time fractured. As the swirl of colors and light enveloped him, he glimpsed the faces around him. Fear, confusion, betrayal, each mired in panic and horror. And somewhere amid the turmoil, as he stumbled backward, he heard Jess's voice, fragile yet resolute. "Michael, it wasn't supposed to end like this." The world imploded around them, and then everything went black. When light retornó y felt unreal, Michael opened sus ojos gaspando por bre. El dolor tronaba en su cabeza. Estaba en el suelo, la gente repartidas en torno a él en una niebla de confusión, pero el silencio ha podido maravilla. Buscando por la verdad, su figura entrancada, una conventancia de movimiento. "Where's Sarah?" Él pecó, y ella estaba en el punto de la nueva realidad. A darkness swirling behind her. "Michael, she began, but her eyes held something else. A truth buried deep, something impossible hanging in the air. Before he could grasp it, another figure emerged from the shadows, laughter lingering in the corners of their mouth. A figure cloaked in darkness. "Did you think you could escape? You've played right into my hand, brother." Michael's heart dropped as the revelation washed over him. The voice was unmistakable. The smirk was a damning reminder of everything he'd worked to escape. "Welcome back to the game." Michael felt like the ground had fallen away beneath him. Nathan's voice dripped with mockery, but Michael couldn't focus on that. Jess lay still, the world around them shifting into a nightmare. The shock in Sarah's eyes matched his own. This was not how it was supposed to end. "Why, Nathan?" Michael's voice cracked, rage and grief churning inside him. "Why would you do this?" "Because it's always about the game, brother," Nathan sneered, but his confidence wavered as he surveyed the chaos unfolding. Sirens blared, and police officers advanced, weapons drawn. Ethan stepped forward. "You don't have to do this. Put the gun down." His voice shook, but there was a desperate hope behind it. But Nathan shot back, eyes narrowing. "And let you all keep ruining my plans? Not a chance." Then, just as everything seemed to spiral, crack! The sound of a gunshot rang out again. Michael's heart stopped. He turned back to Jess, who was still fighting for her breath. "Stay with us, Jess," he shouted, but her eyes were glazing over, fading. He pressed his hands to her wound, his heart collapsing as he felt the warmth seeping through. "Michael," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It wasn't supposed to end like this." "Shut up! You're going to be okay. Just hold on." Panic clawed at his insides, and a wave of helplessness crashed over him. The sirens grew louder, and chaos stretched like an elastic band ready to snap. A commotion erupted as officers flooded the scene, shouting commands, ushering bystanders away. Nathan shifted, caught in the lights and screams that spiraled around them. "Get back!" one officer yelled, aiming at Nathan. Determination etched across his face. But Nathan only laughed, dark and hollow. "You think you can save them?" Then everything erupted into confusion, beams of light, shouting. Time twisted and turned. In that glaring limelight, Nathan stumbled as the police advanced. Suddenly, Michael seized the moment. "Sarah!" he yelled, heart pounding. "Get out of here!" "No, I'm staying!" she shouted back, eyes fierce, holding on to Jess's vision, her face pale but alive in Michael's line of sight. Reluctantly, he released a breath he didn't know he was holding. The fight wasn't over. Without thinking, Michael lunged forward. In one wild motion, lunging toward Nathan, he tackled him to the ground, the impact shaking anger deep inside Michael. "You're going to pay for all of this!" he shouted, adrenaline surging as police officers swarmed around them, handcuffs ready. But Nathan's face twisted, coiling more rage. "You'll never understand what I lost!" Michael pushed harder, pinning Nathan's arms. "I do! I lost friends because of you. I lost trust, Jess, my kin, and I won't lose anyone else." At that moment, Jess gasped, eyes fluttering open. "Michael, help!" The plea echoed before fading, and Michael felt desperation take over. "Someone, help!" he screamed at the crowd, eyes scanning for any sign of hope. He refused to let Jess slip away. The officers moved in quickly. "Step back! We're calling for medics!" one shouted, kneeling beside Jess, shining a flashlight into her fading eyes. The chaos blurred. Hope flickered as Sarah knelt beside Michael, holding Jess's hand. "Please, just hold on, Jess. You'll be okay. They're coming." With the police restraining Nathan, the tide began to shift. The officers, with urgency, began to uncover truths interwoven in this chaos. "Who shot her?" one officer demanded, voice steady, authority pouring through the room. "I did," Nathan confessed, a desperate scream cutting through the air. "I did it for control, for our legacy. You don't understand." The grip of adrenaline faded away as Michael looked at Sarah, who met his gaze with determination. "This isn't over," she whispered. "We'll get to the bottom of this." And as reality crashed down, hints of hope emerged. Through the chaos and shadows, clarity finally seeped through the cracks, pulling them toward uncrossed paths. They had faced the darkness, and maybe, just maybe, they could fight back. But the weight of the night lingered as shadows danced beyond the gathering light. Confusion and mistrust still loomed. What had Nathan unleashed? What would it mean for them all going forward? Each breath felt heavy with uncertainty. The questions crowded the silence. Where would this road lead next? Now, it's time for you to join the journey. You have to subscribe now so you don't miss the exclusive twists and turns in this story. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and flood the comments with all your thoughts and theories about this ending. I want to hear every single reaction. This is the moment to show your support and passion for our community. And don't wait even a second longer. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to experience this story's conclusion. Your engagement makes all the difference.